Your uncle.
In English we say good morning.
Welcome to episode 28 of the Blackadder podcast, where in barely passable English we say good morning, good afternoon or good evening for the final time.
Yes, depending on what time zone you're in and
When you're
listening to it. Yes.
How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. How are you one last time?
I'm okay. You say one last time, not really, only for the Blackadder podcast, but we can discuss that towards the end of this particular episode.
In due course.
Indeed.
Save the best for last.
Possibly. Unlike Blackadder. Well, and certainly in our running order.
Sure.
I don't like to break with tradition too much. Would you have prepared a summary for this summary episode?
Of course I have.
Crack on.
In Untitled Wrap-Up episode, we take a look at the unaired pilot and a strangely familiar iteration of Edmund Blackadder. We consider how Blackadder as a whole stands up today, and we take a look at our favourite moments from the show's run. Once we've done all that, we'll give you a little insight into our plans for the future and offer our most enthusiastic contrafibularities, presuming we haven't caused you any undue pericombobulation.
Very good, Ian. Thank you. Yeah, you mentioned the unaired pilot. We didn't cover it as a proper episode, I think mainly because a lot of the content was reused in a later episode, so it would seem as if we were treading...
Yeah, episode 2, I think, actually.
Yeah, but it's definitely worth discussing to some extent anyway. I think one of our listeners actually got in touch, maybe Facebook, I'm not sure, saying that it's certainly worth a gander. And I must admit, I hadn't watched this before.
No, neither had I, but I was quite pleasantly surprised with some of the things that we found.
On the other hand, disappointed that we ended up getting what we got.
Yeah. I think season 1 is remembered fondly by some people, but I don't think many would consider it the equal or superior of the following 3 series.
No, and it's strange because if you do watch it, and I would certainly recommend it, I think we watched it on Daily Motion.
Yeah. That's legal, right?
Yeah, it's legal to watch. I'm not sure if it's legal to upload, but
we didn't do that. So
we didn't do that, no. Does it come on the box set, the DVD box set?
It's not. No.
Okay. In any case, it's certainly worth watching if you've not seen it before, because what we found was that the character of Blackadder, Edmund Blackadder, who we come to love, is already formed, fully formed in this.
Well, close to it anyway, yeah.
Just about. He's what you would expect in seasons 2, 3 and 4, and nothing really like what we got in the Blackadder.
Yeah, and frustratingly, there's not much on that in the book that I was reading or in any of the texts that I've read about this show, explaining why they made that change.
I mean, my assumption would have been that when Ben Elton came in, he rewrote the character and says, okay, this is what we need to do to make him funny.
But they already had it.
And also, I don't understand a pilot. Surely the pilot's for audience reaction, audience feedback, and also from the commissioning boards at the BBC. So you show them the pilot, and based on that, you either progress to a full season or not. How can you show that the pilot as it was, and then revert to the Blackadder that was broadcast? It seems as if there was a con on the go there.
Well, my only guess, and it's just a guess, is that it's to do with Brian Blessed, and that they were able to get him as the king, obviously a much different character to the king that we see in the unaired pilot, and they maybe felt that it was too similar, not enough of a contrast between Blackadder in the lead and Blessed as the king. That's only a guess.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. I'm not sure if I would fully buy into that. Perhaps, as we've said before, someone can give us some information.
Inside information. Just text it to us.
That would be good. I mean, in fairness, I think that the pilot episode was the best of season 1, if you include it in season 1.
It was certainly better than Born to be King, that shared almost line for line many of the scenes, because they're just played different. It was remarkable. Mm-hmm. The distinction that you can get with basically the same script, just by changing how you present the character. It was really eye-opening in a way.
It was. Although in saying that, it was slightly more than just how they portrayed the character. The sets were different. It was more closed. It was more of a TV studio set that we've become accustomed to, and I actually prefer that. I know the outside shots and the castle interiors were quite impressive, but it didn't have the feel of Blackadder for
They
me.
were quite expensive as well, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have any money for the pilot before they got approved.
Yeah.
And then they got a bit carried away with it
Not
after.
any money for writing jokes.
Well, I mean, what did you think of the other character? I mean, the king, I talked about Brian Blessed before that. I think Blessed's king is an improvement on what we see in this pilot.
Yes.
He's kind of passive, this king, and he's in, I don't say in thrall, but certainly the queen is the stronger character,
Yes.
which isn't the case in the series that we got.
Yeah, Baldric was played by a different actor.
I didn't like this Baldric.
Well, he didn't, in fairness, he didn't have much to do.
He just played him like an airhead.
Yeah.
Not even wittily like Tony Robinson did in season 2, when there was a bit of personality to him. He was just kind of a blank canvas.
Well, I think at this stage he was just an extra sidekick. He wasn't the comedy icon that he went on to be. Prince Harry?
Yeah, I prefer the one that they changed to Robert East
Yeah.
to, I think it was, the guy from Cold Feet, Robert Bathurst.
No, the guy from Toast of London.
Okay. He was quite campy and did a lot of painting and stuff. I liked the character better. Maybe not the actor's fault, but I liked what they did with Harry better in the actual series.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that.
And I like the rotund messenger much better than the wee guy we got in this one.
Yeah. But I mean, clearly the big difference was how Rowan Atkinson played Blackadder. And yeah, I think it's just incredible, astounding that they had him as he should be and they changed it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So all these years, all these decades, I've thought that Ben Elton was a comedy genius who came in and rewrote it and had a vision.
Yeah, no,
But
he's not.
He just went, no, do what you did in the pilot.
Well, I wonder though if that was maybe a collective thing. They maybe sat down and said, well, why did the pilot work better?
But how do we know the pilot did what? I mean, it's never
Maybe,
been aired.
I don't know, maybe somebody thought that. Who
Yeah.
knows? It's certainly, if you've not watched the unaired pilot, go and take a look. It's quite interesting, even if it's just for educational purposes.
Okay, moving on. At the start of this podcast, and I must admit, I can't remember if we made it clear, the reason Detro was to see how the show stood up over time, over the however many, 30 odd years
Yeah.
since it's been first broadcast, and in fact, the 20 odd years since it ceased to air. And I think that may have annoyed some of our listeners who perhaps, again, it might have been our fault, but perhaps didn't realise that what we were doing was picking holes at the comedy itself, the context.
Yeah, it wasn't just a case of let's enjoy the show together.
No,
We were trying to
yeah, like I said,
talk about it in the context of 2018.
yeah, to see if it would still be written like that, if it should still be written like that. I mean, for me, some of the homophobia, obviously, you just wouldn't do it in 2018.
No, I think that's obvious. You wouldn't even consider putting that in a series like this. Certainly if you want it to be mainstream, and certainly if you wanted it to be popular.
Anything else for you?
In terms of negatives,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I was more slanted towards what did work, and I did my notes there. So the things that I thought stood up well, some of the themes, so themes of class conflict, themes of ineffective politicians or military leaders, they stand up, and richly deserved comeuppances are always going to stand up no matter what period they're set in. And I think a lot of the standout performances still play well today.
Yeah.
And it benefits, obviously, fortunately, as at the time of recording, none of these performers have been U-treed. So it makes a big difference.
As far as we know.
There's no taint. You're not watching this thinking, oh, it's him, you know.
Yeah, as of the time of recording this podcast.
Just to be careful. But yeah, there's no, like I said, taint. There's nothing to detract from your enjoyment of these performances.
It would be very sad if something caused it to be never shown again.
That would be terrible. What did you think works well?
No, I mean, I have to support everything you said there. I mean, I think that, yeah, the performances and the jokes themselves, as a whole, are still very funny. Some of it as witty, as incisive at points, but sometimes it is just, you know, a bit of slapstick.
Yeah, I think the point you make there, the jokes that stand up the best, the ones with a bit of wit about them, do a lot better than ones where they're just laughing at somebody's inadequacy or how they look or how they act.
Yeah.
Or taking the mickey out of somebody. That, you know, that's a short-term thing. Whereas something that's got a bit of wit and cleverness behind it is always going to be stronger in the long run.
And I think, as you mentioned, the fact that Blackadder is generally poking fun at his supposed superiors.
Punching up, you might say.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he punches down as well
He
every
certainly
episode.
does, yes.
Yeah. But I think that you can get behind him in his struggle against the aristocracy or the military elite or whoever it would be.
Yeah, he's the everyman.
Yes.
In the episodes that work best.
I mean, it's obviously a show that has massive cultural impact. It's iconic.
Yeah, I mean, I think even though we weren't hugely fond of Back and Forth, the fact they were asked to put that together for the turn of the millennium at the nation's, at that point, premiere event.
The eyes of the world were on this.
This is what was chosen. This is the show that they thought was best representative of our comedy.
Of course. And but remember, that's 10 years after the final episode of Goes Forth.
Yeah, it was a no-win scenario, you might say.
Yeah.
But
No, I mean, I just mean that I think that choosing to revive a 10-year-old, I mean, there aren't many around today. I mean, think of something that finished 10 years ago. Would you revive it for a major event?
I can't think of anything.
No. Even people who haven't watched Blackadder or don't know they're quoting it, quote it.
They do.
A cunning plan is...
Yeah, it's ubiquitous now, isn't it? That's what you say when you've got a good idea.
Yeah. Things like as thick as a whale omelette. I've heard people and seen people write that.
Yeah. No, there's lots of it.
Mm-hmm. One of my favourites that I often use is a small piece of hay and a massive pile of needles.
That always sounded particularly painful to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think some of the characters as well, people know the characters without being able maybe to name the episode they were in. Obviously, Flash Art's the obvious one. Folk are going to know who that is. I think they might remember Robbie Coltrane's performance as Dr. Johnson. They might remember Jim Broadbent and Miriam Margolyes, either of the times that they appeared in the show. They were quite, these are sort of iconic performances that maybe stick in the memory even more so than the episodes that they happened in.
I agree. We should mention Darling.
Yes, of course.
And Melchett has a number of memorable lines. No more so than, but...
Yeah, and Queenie is an iconic character who we almost forgot to mention there.
And Nurses Bernard.
Yes, and anything that Hugh Laurie does.
We mentioned during the goodbye episode, it's actually been used now in schools to help teach history.
Yes, and I think, again, we mentioned during the episode, it's been used on armistice celebrations as a depiction of, I don't know, it's not obviously thought of being as factual, but it captures the emotion and the heart of the event.
I think it opens up history to... I certainly learned more from researching some of the characters in Blackadder and the situations than I would have learned it in history at school.
Sure, absolutely. And it puts it in a context that is accessible and engaging for young people and older people alike.
Indeed. So much so, I think it's regarded as one of the top 2-3 British sitcoms of all time.
Yeah, I mean, what's ahead of it?
Well, there might be one ahead of it.
Only Fools and Horses, maybe?
Yeah, maybe Only Fools and Horses and another show, which we might mention at the end of this.
Okay. Do you think it's worth putting all these brilliant minds in one room and coming out with a script for a new season of Blackadder?
No, is a short answer.
Why?
It's been mooted since the show ended.
Yeah, I mean, the big rumour was a Red Adder Russian Revolution style.
Yeah. The reason I'm saying no, and I think I did mention this on Back and Forth, I think Back and Forth is the standard you might get, and that wasn't great.
Yeah, I think in addition, the issues that these people had working with one another towards the end of the show, I think, did we not say John Lloyd was cut out of Back and Forth altogether? They're now all a lot older as well. It's going to be hard to expect these people to come back to these characters with the same energy and enthusiasm they maybe had when they were younger, and also Hugh Laurie would be far too expensive.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? Although he seems the sort of chap who would do it at cost just to be involved.
That's just an image that he's portraying.
I know his agent would say no chance.
Yes.
Yeah, you can either do that for free or make however many hundreds of thousands of dollars per episode.
Yeah,
and
just sit in a chair somewhere and put an American accent. Yeah.
But no, I think, as Bob said herself, always leave them wanting more.
Yeah, and I think it's also the fact that all the people who were in it have gone on to have success doing other things. Obviously, Rowan Atkinson's got a new movie coming out this summer. Stephen Fry's ubiquitous. He's a national treasure. He's in everything. Hugh Laurie's got major American television shows going on. Tim McInerney's in Game of Thrones and various other things. I think he was in the Cormoran Strike, the J.K. Rowling adaptation recently as well. You know, these people are all working, and it's not like the cast of Allo Allo that spent the rest of their careers touring the show and theatres. You know.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. There can't be any other show that has spawned so many stars or have had such a hugely successful career.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there might be some, but I'm not going to do the
Certainly
research.
not absolutely.
No.
Although that was a good show
It was.
for its time.
Okay. Is this where we do the ranking part? What order would you put your favourite series in?
Okay. Now when you say favourite, do you mean what you like to watch or what you think is the best? Because my personal, I've thought about this obviously, and you flick back and forth. I would rank them in enjoyment 3, 4, 2, 1. I can see why goes fourth is more highly regarded and is perhaps considered more important, but from my personal enjoyment perspective, I'm going 3, 4, 2, 1.
My feeling is it probably, for most people, will come down to which of the Blackadder characterisations you identify with or you enjoy the most. Because I think in all 4 series, there's different things going on around him, but he's the guy that is the heart of the show. And for me, the best Blackadder was Blackadder 2.
Okay.
And then 4, 3, 1.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people will...
I say most people, I have no idea what other people are going to do. For me, this is how it would be.
Well, tell you what, let us know on Twitter or Facebook or wherever
give us
the
your thoughts.
website. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you don't know how to do that, we're on Twitter at Blackadder Pod. Same on Facebook. Just search Blackadder Pod or the Blackadder Podcast. Or you can even go to blackadderpodcast.com because we put up a poster of the show. We can talk about this. There'll be one for this show.
Moving on from that, do you have any particular favourite episodes?
Yeah, there's a few that stick out. For me, Head is the one that has always stuck with me, even before we did the podcast. Ink and Incapability similarly. Although I do, from that series, like I think it is Dish and Dishonesty when they have the election.
Yeah.
I like that. The Christmas Carol is my favourite of the specials by far, and I like the Archbishop from season 1.
Okay. I've noted down, let's see what I've got here. Yeah. Ink and Incapability, the Dr. Johnson.
Yep.
Also, Dish and Dishonesty, Captain Cook, Corporal Punishment. I like Beer, Potato, and The Pilot, if I had to choose one.
You like the Unaired Pilot? Okay. Who was your favourite guest star over the series?
There have been a number. Obviously, you have to give mention to Rick Mail as Flashheart, but Robbie Coltrane again, Miriam Margolyes,
Brian
Jim
Blessed.
Rodden. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you'd class him as a guest star. He was one of the core crew.
I know it's a bit of a wild card, but my favourite might be Tom Baker.
Yes, that's a good shout.
Because that was just an exceptional performance. As much as he didn't rate it himself, it was an exceptional performance.
No, that's a good call.
He was the core of that episode. It was great.
I think we should give mention to Bob as well.
Yeah, Gabby Glaister.
Yes, she has mentioned us on Twitter before, so it's only fair.
Therefore, we have to mention her.
Yeah, no, but she was good and she ran through a number of seasons, so it's always good to see a familiar face in a familiar role.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to say about Blackadder?
No, I mean, I think we've spent a number of episodes discussing it. I don't think we want to bore the listeners.
Yeah, if you want to know what we thought about a particular episode, just go back to that podcast and listen to it again.
Yeah.
If you want to ask us any questions, we're going to be around forever on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, we are. We're also going to be around on our new show. World exclusive.
World exclusive.
Drum roll. I'll probably have to edit that out. We're going to be looking at Faulty Towers.
Oh, I thought it was going to be the British Empire.
That's next.
Okay.
No, Faulty Towers. Again, one of the classics. Up there in the top 3 or 4.
It won't take us long to do Faulty Towers.
12 episodes.
Excellent.
Yep.
That's a summer.
One of the main reasons why we chose it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I think in fairness, that is one of the reasons we're recording one a week. Because if you take into account the Jonathan Creek podcast, we also do.
Yeah.
We always like to put out one podcast a week. So it does take, I mean, this is taking us
a year.
people have asked us in the past, especially on the Columbo podcast, can you do things like Quincy or Murder, She Wrote? And it's like, no.
500 episodes.
Or certainly hundreds of episodes. That would take years of our lives. And whilst I'd like to, that ain't going to be happening. So anything under the sort of...
Coming from the Glasgow area, we're not expected to live that long on average. So.
Speak for yourself. I'm in Eastern Bartonshire now, Ian. No, I mean, that is the thing. But looking forward to the Fault Towers podcast. If you keep subscribing to the Blackadder podcast, there will be updates as to when we are looking to launch it. Probably.
There may or may not. Oh yeah, on Twitter we'll put out updates, and we might even put episode 1 of Fault Towers into the Blackadder feed.
Yes.
When we release it.
And then we would ask you if you intend to subscribe to its own feed and follow our own accounts. And
I'd imagine it maybe about a month or so away.
You think?
6 weeks. In that ballpark.
Yeah. We're finishing off Jonathan Creek, and then we'll have another podcast.
Yeah, a major project, so keep an eye out for that as well.
A biggie, a worldwide biggie.
All-time classic. And it'll be a major undertaking, so look forward to that one, folks.
That's just about us. However, I think before we wrap things up, there's one very important thing we've not done yet.
What's that?
We have to thank everyone who listened and everyone who contributed. I mean, we wouldn't be doing it. If there was no downloads, if there was no listeners, we would wrap it after a couple of episodes. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's always great to see, how many thousands of folk are downloading stuff, and it's always great to see feedback and comments, even if you don't like the show, because it's all about opinions. We don't expect you to listen to our show and agree with everything that we say. It's a starting point for some discussion. Yeah. So hopefully we've encouraged you to go back and watch Blackadder again and enjoy it, hopefully in order that we did it, because that was good. Yeah. Whatever order you like it. And hopefully you've enjoyed the podcasts with it, and we'll see you again, I suppose, at some point. Yeah, well, hopefully you'll follow us to the Fault Tower podcast. Hopefully lots of you are listening to the Jonathan Creek podcast. It was great to see people coming from Columbo and coming from other previous shows we've done before, and we do really enjoy that. So, yeah, I'm sure everyone will hopefully stick around. You're being very hopeful tonight. I'm being very hopeful. But if we've got this far, if they're listening to this episode, and they've reached this stage of this episode, there's a good chance we've got them. And also there's the whole inertia thing. They won't unsubscribe because it takes effort. So it'll just sit there on their feed. That's and then pop, new episode. Okay. Now, we've got to this sort of awkward silence stage. Is there any idea, how do you get out of a podcast? Do you know anyone that could give us some advice? I've got an idea. Let me make a call.
Well, this is most irregular, but, all right, if I do fix it for you, I never want to hear from you again. Is that clear? Put your underpants on your head and stick 2 pencils up your nose. They'll think you're crazy and send you home.
Wibble.